Hey, everybody. We are here with writer-director Brendan Devane, and he has a new film called The Canyonlands coming to theaters March 5th and digital platforms on March 9th. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, Norm. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Um, so let's get right into it. What inspired you to create this film?
Well, when I was the genesis of the project was going to be in the horror genre, and I was kind of looking, the old adage in the filmmaking is everybody's looking for something the same but different, right? Give me the same thing but different, and I was really started with like what kind of a different environment could I place a horror movie. And I lived in Southwest Colorado for a long time in my younger years, and not far from Moab, and used to go to Moab area all the time during off season and spring and stuff like that, and really fell in love with the area. And so that kind of sprang to mind because I've been borderline lost myself out there, and it's not fun. Um, and so it sort of sprang up as like a cool place where you don't normally would think of it or see it in the horror genre, but yet I thought that there was some natural tension that you could build in from the remoteness, and the terrain is really confusing out there. And so just kind of built from there, as far as like, oh, we could, put some people get lost out there, and then I kind of built a story around with starting from the actual locale.
Hmm. And so you were a horror fan to begin with, or?
I'm a film fan, so like I like all. If people ask me all the time, "What's your favorite movie?" I can't tell you what my favorite movies are because I like dramas, I love comedies, I love actions, I like horror. I just if it's good, I'll watch it. And so I enjoy pretty much a broad spectrum of films, including horror. So yeah, it was something that I wanted to start off with. Was horror. It's an easier kind of genre to maybe say break into than say a 17th century period drama or something like that.
I mean, unless you have a friend who's a costume designer, but
Yeah, that would definitely help. Um, and yeah, I was just looking to do something different, but as of course the same because ultimately it's kind of a slasher movie, but in a different locale with maybe a little bit different story going on, kind
yeah. So uh, let's talk about Pete.
of.
Now,
Sure.
why is he so angry?
Well, he's angry for a lot of reasons. One, I think he's just unbalanced and always has been in his life. In fact, I'd have to pull up the old character bios that I wrote for the actors before I gave them, and there's a pretty extensive one for for Marcus to work on. Um, Essentially, he has been stuck to the land against his will, based on his past actions, and was kind of hatching a plan to release himself from his predicament.
Mhm.
Sometimes it goes his way, and sometimes it doesn't go his way. So I think, like everybody else, he's probably frustrated from being there for 150 years.
Yeah, I was definitely seeing shades of Minor 49er, in Scooby Doo. I was like, oh, he's. So another thing that I was really impressed with was Stephanie Barkley. She was really great as Lauren. How did you find her? How did she come on board?
Yeah, Stephanie put in an amazing performance. I couldn't be happier with the work she did. She was brought to me by our casting director in LA, and she went through multiple auditions. There were many good auditions from prospective actors for the film. I don't want to slight anybody, but Stephanie's just seemed to just have that little extra something, to the role, and she seemed like she was a great fit for it. She was bringing the attitude that I wanted from somebody who was, a river guide in that part of the country, but yet also, can be that troubled, kind of vulnerable at times person. So as far as Stephanie goes, yeah, she after a couple auditions, she just nailed it, like just nailed it, and it was a pretty much no brainer.
Yeah, that was definitely some strong casting with her because she does a nice job. So this was your first feature. correct?
Correct. Yes.
And what were there any particular, I don't know, unexpected challenges that came up or unexpected rewards in the process?
Well, I think every film production, right, has their challenges that you don't know that are going to come up with. In this particular case, the actual production was difficult based on where we shot it. We're out there. I mean, like that's as close as you can be to the Canyonlands National Park without being in the park, which you can't be in unless you're filming educational kind of stuff. Our river filming permit went right to the borderlines of the park, but we were 20 miles outside of Moab at the end of a 4x4 road that you had to go over a pass to get to. No cell phone service, no electricity, no water, so everything had to be trucked in and solar and stuff like that. So from a production aspect, it was very challenging to pull off, something of our budget level. I mean, the Lone Ranger the 2013 one shot very near where we shot, but they didn't go as far as out as we. They went to the other side of the pass, even with all their resources. I was dumb enough to keep on going out there. So yeah, that presented a challenge. As far as a first time director, you're kind of finding your feet a little bit as the first couple of days, and figuring out, I guess, some of your own style and what you want to do, and the working relationships with the crew and the cast and stuff like that. I wouldn't say there was any unpredictable challenges that came from that, but things, we were always having to adjust things on the fly. We got hailed on, we got rained on, thunderstorms, flash floods. It was unseasonably cold. We had one day that was shot inside, everything else was outside. And fortunately, it rained on the one day that we were shot inside, which was very fortuitous. But the whole process was very, very rewarding. It's interesting, as the director and the producer, when the cast goes home and the cameras get turned off, there's still a lot of work to be done. I mean, there's more VFX shots in this film than Inception, which is probably more of a testament
Wow.
to Christopher Nolan's ability to pull off practical effects than it is for this film. But there's over 200 VFX shots in here, and these are all painstakingly put together. The sound had to be put together, the mixes, everything, our whole day for night look, because we didn't shoot at night except when there was natural fire. Those scenes we shot at night, but for safety reasons, we just couldn't be out in these canyons in the middle of the night, nor would be able to light up that amount of square footage properly to be able to see the actors and stuff. So
Right.
the color grading process for this film took months, and it's not something that first time directors or filmmakers are kind of thinking about, I think, is when they think about, like, oh, you've got a whole color grade process. The first color grading for this film, to Alex's Cantatori, the DP's credit, was too realistic. It looked too much like night, and we had to lighten it up a bit, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to see the actors' faces very well. I didn't want to necessarily be like a found footage kind of thing out there, or vignettes. I wanted people to be able to see the actual environment that the cast that we were in, and still be able to see the actors' faces. And so we actually lightened it up a little bit. But yeah, there was challenges left and right, and they just don't end when the principal photography is over. There was just that we had to keep on working through.
Yeah, I do have to say that the film really looked good, and there was some beautiful photography in there. So you guys did an amazing job there. I also, one of the other things that I noted was the balance in the cast and the diversity. Was that something that you set out to do, or was that just serendipitous?
No, that was something I set out to do. In today's environments, and I was almost the oldest person who worked on this film. The editor is in his 20s, Alex, the DP, is in his 20s, and diversity is really, it should be important for everybody in industry, but more so for the younger people who are coming up. It's just part of how they grew up. my generation, it was kind of in the 80s. Generation, I'm Generation Xer, kind of, we maybe started that, but it wasn't like the horror movies that I grew up in the 80s were diverse. Like I grew
Yeah.
up watching Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th, and those casts aren't diverse at all, right?
Right.
So it was something I definitely wanted to do, and make an effort at, showing a wide array of people, especially one that came from a random contest. I didn't want everyone to be the same out there. Plus, it was helpful to differentiate characters too, as well, so be able to write different characters as opposed to being them all the same.
Yeah. Well, you definitely did that well. So good job.
Yeah.
Um, and I suppose my last question for you would be, if you could go back, I don't know, let's say 2 years, and give yourself some advice on this project, what would it have been?
Oh, geez, I don't know if there's enough time in the show. Uh, I think everyone, I worked in the music business for a long time before this as well, in music production. And there's this saying is the same in the film industry as well, is that music or film is never really done. It's just ready to be released. And so at some point, you just have to, I mean, there's plenty of things in this film that I'd like to change, redo, reshoot, wish I had done differently, wish I had written differently. And all of them are great ideas. I'm great at coming up with better ideas after the fact. I think a lot of people are, right? Hindsight's 2020. So at some point, you just kind of have to let it go and be like, this is it. Like, this is how the film is going to be, and this is the parameters I have to work in. Now, advice to give myself, I would say, budget more money. you Maybe not pick such ambitious shooting locales, such as this one. We pulled it off, and it ended up working. But if we ran this production over again in a simulation, I don't know if we finish every single time. Of where we were, and some of the things that we had to go through. So some of that was just the natural naivety, being naive that I had, which works in some ways, but then it doesn't work in other ways. So yeah, I have a ton of advice for myself 2 years ago. But I'm happy with what we did. I'm happy with what we accomplished, and finished. And sure, there's plenty of things I would do differently, and I would love to go reshoot some scenes and rewrite some stuff, and
Funding.
Like, yeah,
Get the
funding.
funding.
Well, we're self-funded, so I guess that boat has sailed. But yeah, it was definitely a great experience, and I just think that the experience alone is going to provide a lot of those questions and advice for my former self on my next project, which I seem to be repeating some of the same mistakes of shooting in a crazy ambitious locale. But this time, hopefully won't make the same mistakes. I'll just make new ones.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess that's art, isn't it?
Yeah.
So listen, I think I may have seen Sadie walking around.
That is Luna. That is Luna.
Luna?
Sadie was my Australian shepherd. She passed away several years ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But
Well,
this is the new last Luna mascot. Yeah.
well, make a Luna Land Productions. I don't know,
There you
but
go. Gotta get right to it.
but again, thank you so much for taking the time. And again, the Canyonlands comes out March 5th in theaters and March 9th on VOD. Brendan, it was a pleasure talking to you, and best of luck on your project.
Thank you so much, Norman, and I appreciate the time.
All right, take care.